It is always such a joy to be here in Bayard, Nebraska, at this most beautiful little church of the Theotokos. I glorify God and I thank Him that He counted me worthy once again to be with you, the good people of Nebraska. We read that beautiful gospel reading today about the sower and the seeds and the rocks and the tares and the weeds and so forth. We heard about how the pleasures of this life and the enjoyments that we do keep us away from a real experience of God's grace, communion with Him as we aim for His heavenly kingdom. I like to concentrate, however, more on the joy that we experience when we come to each and every divine liturgy. This beautiful church didn't just happen, you know. Boys, if you thought that, think again. A lot of hard work, a lot of prayer, a lot of sweat. I think of the founding members of this beautiful community in Bayard, which includes, of course, Bridgeport and Scottsbluff and Alliance and so forth. I think of those who have passed, as we remember today for the 2-year anniversary of his passing. George Anist and the Anist family at large, the Lapisodis family, the Chicos family, the Panis family, the Blacos family, the Cochinas family of Alliance, Mr. Katina, and what was his name? George also. And my heart wells up with great thanksgiving that those hardworking people, if I left anybody out, please forgive me, but those are the names of the founders that I could recall of this beautiful, beautiful community. And we are ever grateful to them. We are grateful to them like we are for the whole history of the church. In fact, Kira Chrysula gave me an opportunity today because she raced through her own pace the Pater Imon today, which is fine because she doesn't hear well. We prefer to say it rhythmically so that as these boys have learned to say the Pater Imon in Greek, and all of you have learned and grown accustomed to saying it in Greek, we say it rhythmically and slowly so we can all learn it. It reminds me, you know, the great wave of people who are coming to the church in the last 30 and 40 years, it helped us. It helped us a great deal because until that great wave of people coming into the church from outside of the church, and here too, in the last, even the 6 or 7 years that I've been coming, we've seen a small wave of people coming into the church. And that has taught us something very, very important. Those people who have come into the church in a very special way appreciate the Hellenism of the church more than sometimes we do ourselves who have been in the church all our lives. Until that great wave that started 30, 40 years ago, we thought primarily, which is not necessarily only true, but it's a secondary reason, that we were keeping the Greek language alive in the church because Mrs. Chrysula is from Greece and she likes it, and there might be another lady, Mrs. Anastasia here, who likes it. That's fine and that's good too, of course. But it is primarily not about that ethnicity, because we know that Serbians and Romanians, Russians and Ukrainians all learn Greek. As far as that goes, all Protestants learn Greek and study Greek in their seminaries. They're required 2 years of New Testament Greek in their seminaries. Why? It's very important. Today, St. Paul talked about heretics. If they don't listen to you the first time or the second time and the third time, then don't have anything to do with them. In the English translation, which is done by the likes of King James and others and so forth, they don't put heretic there. They put, what is the word you said? reading the epistle today. They're different. They are schismatic. They are, what's the word? There was a word used there. The word is heretic. All of the heresies of the church, my beloved Christians, began when St. Jerome, God rest his soul, and may we have his blessing. He was a holy bishop of the church in Rome. But he insisted, because of his relationships with the Hebrew Jewish people of his quarter there in Rome where he lived, to translate the Old Testament, which was providentially translated into Greek in the 3rd century BC, and the New Testament, which was written in Greek by the apostles who were Greek-speaking. You know, only the apostle Luke was actually a Hellene, a Greek. The rest of them were Hellenized Jews, thanks to the expeditions of Alexander the Great, who spread the freedom-loving ways of the Greek people, the language, the idealism, democracy, freedom for all people throughout all of the lands of Asia Minor, including Israel. So they were Greek-speaking. Paul himself, the apostle of Tarsus, one of the great centers of Hellenic learning, was where he was from. He grew up in Greek-speaking Tarsus of Asia Minor. And so it's very important, and I like to suggest again and again, as I have for some time now, that some of you bear down and try to learn the creed, the symbol of our faith, the way it was written by the fathers of the church painstakingly. They came maimed to that first ecumenical council and the second, and they deliberated prayerfully, humbly, with fasting, to write those beautiful words, including that special word that cannot be translated, homoousion. I hope those of you who are parents and grandparents will make subtle, maybe nudges or specific nudges to your children to teach them the Greek language. Perhaps some of you who are homeschoolers, make sure that you do that. It turns out by using sometimes the English language, which is borrowed, of course, because it's a Protestant language. It's a language of the fallout of England, where King Henry wanted to get married a 4th time because he didn't have a son and he wanted an heir to his kingdom. And he married again, but the Roman Catholic Church that he belonged to that point didn't allow him to marry again, so he broke off and started a new church. And then they made the translations and so forth, and there are so many, I say this to the young people especially, who have come into the church in the last few years or recently, so many mistakes in the English language. That's why we understand, of course, over 50% of the English language itself is from Greek, not only church words like Bible, Christ, baptism, theology, epiphany. All these beautiful, beautiful words come from the Hellenic language, which is foundational to the church, to all people who call themselves Orthodox. Orthodox itself is a Greek word. So I adjure you, and I commend you actually, because here in Bayard, we have understood that to a high degree, that the Greek language is not merely for Kyria Chrysula, whom I love and respect very much. It is for Garrett and the little baby that we're going to baptize today, so that they will know that they belong to the ancient church, the church that started the ball rolling, and that the heresies from the church started when they misunderstood the words. The Latin language does not say the things that the Greek New Testament and the Old Testament say. They don't have those words. In fact, the Latin language is quite legalistic, and that's why the Western church started to become a little bit harsh, and they made God out to be a strong, hard, judgment kind of God, that he thankfully came down and saved us because we were so bad or something. Far from the truth. God came down because he loves us, simply. And he knows we live in this condition called sin. We are imperfect beings. And God only loves us, only loves us. He doesn't punish us. He's not mad at us because we make so many mistakes. He loves us. And he's trying through his church, his one true church, the Holy Catholic Apostolic Church, to bring us back to his love.